Hey all, we'll look at what is Devsecops today. Okay, so traditionally when we see this terminology was started with the word of just DevOps and Sec was added in between to emphasize the importance of security within the DevOps. So what is DevOps is nothing but there are two parts in it. One is the development part and the second one is operation part. So development part is where all the creation activities are going to happen, like writing the code, running unit testings, etc. And the operation part is where all the deployment activities are going to happen, and like provisioning the infrastructure and then deploying the application or the product that has been developed and so on. So, when we look at traditionally, the DevOps will be represented by an infinity symbol. So, which means that the development and operation are under continuous loop, which means the feedback from the operation team will be fed to the development team, and the feedback from the development team will be fed to the operation team, and this process will be in the form of a continuous loop to improve the overall performance of the application. So this is how it has been traditionally developed. And if we look at the traditional cycle, we don't have security as one of the aspects of the software development itself, and that is where Devsecops came into picture. So in Devsecops, what is happening is security is integrated as part of the DevOps operation itself. So traditionally, what would have happened is people would have written the code, and then maybe probably would have done some testing, unit testing or so, and then probably a peer review or would have happened and so on, right? And then once everything is done and the code is almost built and it is ready for deployment, we will conduct something called as security testing. So in security testing, it comprises of different scannings like SAST, DAST, IAST, SBOM, etc. But what would happen as part of security testing is, when the security testing is happening, there will be a lot of vulnerabilities which are getting identified. So when these vulnerabilities are getting identified, then the developer is forced to make code level changes again, and then again the peer review or the testing has to be completed again, and then again the security testing will happen, and then when the vulnerabilities are identified, and the code level changes has to be maintained. So let us just say for a project we will generally have a timeline fixed. Let us say for this particular application they have fixed the timeline as 1 month. Okay, so in the 1 month, if all earlier what would happen is, major chunk of this 1 month, let's say around 3 weeks, 3 weeks would have been spent for the code development alone, and the last 1 week they would take care of all the other activities which are required for the deployment, like security testing and infrastructure provisioning and so on. Please consider this as a metaphor. Don't take this as an actual implementation of how it is working within the corporate network. So let us just assume the last 1 week is where the other activities will happen. But now, since the security testing is happening and the vulnerabilities are getting identified and code level changes are also happening, the project will not get delivered within the specified timeline. Let's say if it is 1 month, there had been scenarios where it is also getting extended for more than 1 month or 1 week or so on. And because of various security incidents, it has been evident that a product cannot be released with vulnerabilities in it. It should have zero issues or vulnerabilities in them, is what most of the companies set as the security baseline. So security so traditionally what would happen is, security assessments has always delayed the security assessments is always to delay the production deployment, or So this was an issue, right? We cannot go ahead and deploy a vulnerable product also, and at the same time we cannot also delay the production deployment, and that is where this concept of shift left came into picture. So what are we doing here is basically we are shifting the security to the DevOps stage itself. Let's say when you are writing a code, security is getting integrated as part of writing the code itself. When you are doing a peer review or when you are making a commit, security is getting integrated as part of that itself. When you are doing a unit of functionality testing, security is getting integrated as part of it, that itself. So this way what we are looking at is, instead of having one single window pane where the security test is happening before the production deployment, here what we are doing is including security as part of every stages of the deployment. So how we will look at it in detail. So let us just say we will not get into the software development lifecycle phases, but instead we will just look at what happens. A developer is there, so what he will do, he will write the code probably in GitHub or any other platform. He'll write his code, and then once he has written the code, he would want to commit it, right, or push it into the major repository. And after pushing it into the major repository, probably we will have the code being built, and after it is built it will be tested, right, and then it will go for deployment. So what we are going to do here is, in the code level itself, in the developer laptop itself, we have something called as IDE, right? So there are scanning engines available which can sit at the IDE level and do the scan as and when the code is written, okay? And then again, when it is also pushed to the repository, or when the commit is made, there are certain checks that can be made. So we can have some normal SAST scans done. We can have something called as dependency checker, and then we also have something called as secret scans. So there are a lot of different software composition analysis solution, and there are lot of different code review solutions which can be used for this purpose. And then here when we look at the build stage, here what we are going to do is, here we are going to do something called as SAST. So it can be done at the raw source code, or it can be done at the build code. And then during the testing stage, probably it is present in an environment where the deployment has happened, like in a pre-prod environment or so on. There I'm going to introduce either DAST or in some cases IAST as well. And then in the deployment environment, we do something called as continuous monitoring. So continuous monitoring will be applicable for applications which are in production and it is reachable via internet, okay? Mostly in some organizations, depending on the criticality, the intranet applications which is not exposed to internet, those kind of applications can also be used for will also undergo continuous monitoring. Here if we look at the difference, the DAST or IAST is going to be a very intrusive test, whereas this one is going to be non-intrusive. So this way, if we look at the entire continuous integration and continuous deployment process, in each stage of the software development life cycle, security scans are integrated, so that we are not doing security scan as one major chunk of the software development life cycle process. Okay, I hope this gives a clarity on what Devsecops is. We will meet again for the next video.